If you'd like to talk about your own Bigfoot encounter, or if you're looking for help from a Bigfoot investigator in your area, email me at bigfootcrossroads@gmail.com. No Sasquatch were harmed in the recording of this podcast.
Hi, my name's Sally Andra. I live in the heart of the Redwoods, and I seen family.
I'm just going to jump right into this because you messaged me on Instagram and told me a story that you don't hear a lot. A pretty amazing story you got there.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was very much so.
As soon as you told it to me, I was like, oh, wow. I wonder if she'll come on the show because I know people will want to hear it, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know that all my friends kind of think it's interesting. You know, it's one of those see it to believe it things. They kind of chuckle at me, but I'm a pretty, I'm not one to tell stories that aren't true. Usually, if I'm telling somebody something, it's usually the truth. So they they're in awe, but at the same time, it's like I said, you have to see it to believe it. And most of my friends are those types, so.
Yeah, I was the same way until then you see it and then you have to believe it and then you don't know what to do with it. That's the
right.
That's the problem, it seems. So
right.
You're in Humboldt County, which is like pretty much the capital for Bigfoot in California.
Yeah.
You sent me that link to the report on the BFRO, and I was noticing that Humboldt's got 47 reports on the BFRO website, which is far more than any other county in California. I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, I don't think I did either. But I do know that I've had a couple of experiences where I was entangled in Bigfoot reality.
That is a very appropriate term for it, Bigfoot reality, because it is its very own reality in a lot of ways.
Yes.
So was this like something that, as a kid, you were just like, hey, Bigfoot's cool, I think it's real? Or is it something that you kind of stumbled into?
Well, something I kind of stumbled into, even though I grew up in Bigfoot country, which, as you go through the Avenue of the Giants, you see lots of Bigfoot stuff, like you see the shops and the trinket stores, and they're all names of Bigfoot or come see Bigfoot, and 40-foot tall statue that somebody carved out of a redwood tree of Bigfoot that you can go look at right there in Red Crest, which is really kind of cool. But growing up, it was mostly the trees. My mother used to go and take a different trail every day, and as a kid through the redwoods, and it was never so much Bigfoot the subject. But as an adult, it's hard to say. Like, I just all of a sudden one day it was like smack with Bigfoot. I was like, all of a sudden I was awake to the possibility and the reality that he was around.
So what happened? What caused that epiphany to occur?
Well, I was on a hike with my husband and my two boys on this trail, and I just happened to look down and I saw these giant footprints, and I was like, oh my gosh, look at these giant bare footprints. Somebody's not wearing shoes and they have really big feet. And my husband was like, that's probably Bigfoot. And I was like, no way, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah. And so I took a picture of the footprint, and I had my thermos sitting on the ground next to him as I was taking the pictures, and the thermos but my thermos is 12 inches tall, and it was like sitting next to it, and it's a good 3 inches in diameter. So I was like, it was kind of like a good for size comparison.
Yeah.
And I got home and I got to looking at the pictures, and I noticed that this is like a really big footprint. And then it took me actually until about 4 months later, I was showing the pictures to a friend of mine, and I noticed that there was actually 2 feet there. There wasn't just the one print. There was actually 2 prints. But my foot was actually half covering one of the prints. And I was like, whoa, he was standing right there. And so that was pretty cool. And then a couple of weeks later, I was down on the river bar with my husband. And we went down there with our BB guns, and my boys are 3 and 5. So we were going to shoot BB guns down at a place called High Rock, which is along the avenue. And we went down there, and my husband says, I'm going to find a place to set up a target for us to shoot at. And so my oldest son, and my husband decided they were going to do the BB target. So me and my youngest son, we were going to go, my dog's panting. Me and my youngest son, we were going to go across looking for rocks, because there's actually more minerals here in Humboldt County in one spot than there is in the whole world. So, it's a really great spot to go look for rocks. And we were going to go down. And so on the way across the river, we happened to come across a footprint in the sand in the middle of the river bar, where the river kind of splits, and there's like a little island. And I said, "Wow, that's really neat. Let's go get the phone and take a picture of that." And my son was kind of not himself. He was acting not like himself. He was kind of sidetracked with something of his own, which was odd for him because my 3-year-old loves mommy. Mommy always does cool stuff, so we follow mommy. Yeah. And for him to be like not with mommy was kind of strange, and so I grabbed him up, in my arms and was packing him, and we went back to the truck, and my husband was still getting stuff ready to go shoot the BB gun, and I said, "Hey, he's not acting quite like himself." I said, "Can you keep an eye on him? I'm going to grab my phone and go take a picture of this big footprint." And he said, "What? You found a print?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "So did I." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, right over there." And I was like, "No way." And sure as shit, excuse me.
Oh, you're fine.
Sure as shit, I walked over there, and there was an exact same size footprint just over right by where they were going to go shooting. And I was like, that is so strange. Well, long story kind of short. They went back. They were sitting in the truck while I was getting the picture of the print, and the boys decided they wanted to eat, so they were going to sit in the van and eat. And I was kind of just tripping around, I guess it's like my first couple months of Bigfoot, extravaganza. And
yeah.
I was really kind of just calling to him in my mind and in my spirit, and my whole existence was, "Hey, Bigfoot, if you're here, come out and say hi" type feeling, And next thing you know, I just had this strangest feeling like I was being told to sit down, to stop and sit. And so I kind of knelt down onto the ground, and I was, this is strange. I've never told anybody this story. I'm the only one that knows is my husband, so you guys are getting a treat. I was kind of distracted by something higher and bigger than I was telling me to sit down. Yeah, something was telling me to just it felt like I had a big heavy weight on my shoulders, and so I got down in the sand on the river bar, and I had my phone in my hand because I was kind of doing a video. Like I said, I was taking pictures of this footprint, and so I just put it on video. And all of a sudden I just knelt down in the sand, and I had this, so trippy. I had this voice all of a sudden in me, in my head, telling me that I had beautiful, beautiful boys, that I had beautiful children, and that I was lucky to have the blessing of children. And I was thinking to myself, "Well, this is really weird." In my mind, I'm going, "What? How is this even happening right now? What is this?" It was almost like it was almost like listening to a conversation in another room, kind of like you're sitting in one room and you can hear through the wall like a conversation. It was kind of something like that, it to me, but it was in my head.
Like if you're like at a hotel room or something, or an apartment building.
And you want to hear, And I kept saying, okay, so because it's just me there, and my kids are another 20 yards up the river bar in the van with my husband. So I'm like, what the heck is going on? Show me something. I in my head, I was like, you have to show me something. Like, show me, throw a stick at me, throw a rock at me, do a tree knock, something. So I know this is what I think it is, because I was like, I was just saying a prayer, like, hello, Bigfoot type thing.
Right.
And so for that to come at me was more than I was expecting. It was way more than I had even asked for, even I felt. But I got what I asked for, I guess. So I was told, the Bigfoot told me that I'm not sure, because the voice in my head was like my own voice, so to say, almost kind of, but not. Like I said, it was in my head, so hard to describe what the voice was. But it said that it had lost its baby in the fire, and in order to throw rocks or anything was not going to happen because of the hand. In my head, I got this vision of these hands that were big and black and burnt. And I just was like, wow, it was really overtaking me, even though it felt like it was 20 hours of being there experiencing this. I guess my husband said it was only 20 maybe 20 or 30 seconds that I was not down there for this whole incident. But I guess the vision that I had, or the telepathy that I was contacted with, I call it my Bigfoot abduction, my Bigfoot telepathy abduction, I call it. And come to find out that there was a fire on the backside of a place called Garberville, which is on the avenue, which was about, from High Rock, it's about maybe 10 miles. And the fire had ran out a bunch of creatures. There was a bunch of, almost every animal from that area had pretty much moved north to where I was. And there was before, I was even surprised the coyotes were there, the rabbits were there, all the animals would have ran from the fire were there. And it was really strange. I had dreams for the next 2 weeks of that. And in my dreams, I was able to ask questions and get answers, but I don't know what the heck was going on there. Like I said, it was just a really big trip being on the river bar for that. That was just my first experience with Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah. No big deal. Just, psychic communication.
Just something strange.
So at that point, whenever that had happened, up until then, you'd seen the big tracks on the trail whenever you were walking with your family.
Yeah.
And now this was like another random event where you just found a random track and thought it was cool and wanted to take a picture of it.
Right.
So how much did you know about Bigfoot at that point?
Not a whole lot. I'd watched a couple of YouTube videos and listened to a couple of podcasts about the tree bends and the tree bend thing, and then the tree snaps, and then the calls and the whoops, those things, just the typical Bigfoot stuff.
Anything about Bigfoot mind speak at that point?
I had not learned anything about the telepathy until I had talked to Red River Cryptid. Mm-hmm. James off of Red River Cryptid was my first person that I confided in about Bigfoot, and he explained to me that it's happened. He's known for communicating telepathy, through mental telepathy, and he got me brave enough to tell my story, but I never did get an interview out on that one till now.
Were you feeling emotion at the time?
I was so overcome with emotion. I was actually, when I walked up to the van, I was crying. My husband was like, "What's wrong?" And I couldn't tell him. I wasn't going to tell him because we were kind of going through some issues at the time, and I was afraid that he'd use it against me. So I was like, I'm not going to tell him.
Did you know about the wildfire at that point?
Oh yeah, well, everybody knew about the wildfire. The California, Northern California wildfire was burning the backside of Garberville was known. Yes, that was. Yeah, the first time that redwood forest had burnt for many years. So it's about the same area as where I had my family sighting.
Mm-hmm.
Is where the forest fire was, but this is a year later. A girlfriend of mine had invited me out to have dinner, and her and her wife live up Redway. You go out Redway, and then you head up towards the mountains. And there's very few people out there. When you first head up the mountain, there's a bunch of off and on roads, but once you get out there, like about 10, 12 miles, the roads that go to the sides and turn off are desolate. There's not very many. And I get up to her road, which she tells me you'll go a couple miles without seeing a road, and then you'll know it's my road because it's the only one for a couple miles. And I was like, okay. So it took me forever, it felt like, to get there because it was windy and straight up. And I pull into the driveway and I see nothing but tree bins and vine ropes tied together. And it was just like it looked like a Bigfoot playground.
Yeah.
And so I knocked on, it was great. I was like, wow, this is interesting. And so I knock on her door, and first words out of my mouth are like, you wouldn't happen to know anything about Bigfoot, would you? She kind of chuckled. And she goes, I'll show you something after dinner. Come on in. And I was like, what? No way. I'm thinking, no way. Show me something after dinner. I've seen it all, you know. I've even had telepathy communications there. Yeah. She can show me. I'm thinking. And she's like, I'm thinking there's just no way that's going to, I mean, it's in the back of my mind. I'm thinking that would be super great, but like, there's no way, you know. And we eat, and dinner was ready, and we eat, and it's about 45 minutes later, are you ready? And I was like, oh yeah, can I bring and I go to grab my phone, and can I bring my phone? And she says, well, I wouldn't if you wanted to see what I'm going to show you. And I was like, huh? Okay. So I leave my phone on the counter, and we go to out the back door, and out the back door, there's a trail that got holly bushes. I don't know if you know what those are, but holly bushes on each side of the trail, and they go back until they look like they come to a point where they just end, like they dead end. But as she takes me down the trail, we start to reach the end, and it doesn't dead end. It kind of opens up into this garden that she has obviously been planted by a human or by civilization.
Right.
It's a garden it's not very fruitful at the moment. It's, like I said, it was February, and so it wasn't a whole lot of vegetables. There was maybe what looked like some cabbage and some carrots, maybe potatoes in it still. And I watch for what I'm tripping over, the vines that are going to cross the trail. I look up and I see the family standing in the garden about 40 feet from me, I say, because the garden was 30 by 20, she said. And so later she told me the garden was 20 by 30. And so like I'm standing at this side and they're on that side. So I'd say they're probably about 30 feet from me. And this is so neat. I get just blush red when I tell this story because it brings back the feelings that I felt that day.
Yeah, that a lot of witnesses say that, actually, that and that's the truth for me personally. Whenever you think about it and start talking about it, it all comes back again.
Oh, it's so wonderful. It's such a great feeling. I literally stood there and, excuse my expression, I pissed my pants. Like, I don't know why I pissed my pants.
I mean, I think a lot of people listening would understand that reaction, though.
But I did. I stood there and peed myself, and I didn't even know it. But the big tall guy that was standing there with the mama and the baby, I'm assuming, which was his family, his nose went up in the air, and his upper lip curled up, and I could see his yellow teeth and his canines. He had like these huge dominant canines in his top row of teeth, and they were coming over the bottom part of his lip, and he was smelling the air, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, these things are real, and they're just beautiful, beautiful, like redwood bark colored fur, just between the color of like a black and a red. Just gorgeous. I was so fascinated with this. It was, it felt like it really felt like it was 2 hours that I stood there intriguing, but I guess it was probably only maybe a minute because he, after he smelt me, I guess, peeing my pants, he tapped Mama, and Mama reached down and swooped up Baby, and they just nonchalantly walked back into the forest behind the garden, further into the woods there, and just kind of kept walking. And I didn't realize I'd peed myself till I was halfway up the trail back to the house, and it started to get cold. And I was like, oh boy.
Did your friend say anything at the time?
No, there was no talking aloud, she told me. So during the whole trail walk no, she didn't actually say much until we got back to the house, and I actually had to go home to my family. And so the conversation was kind of short, and I hadn't talked to her for 10 years, and I probably won't talk to her again for 10 years, but it was really cool. She explained to me how she had planted the garden to deter it from her house. At the time when she first moved in there 12 years prior to the garden, she said that she would go game hunting. Her and her gentleman friends would go game hunting out there, and when they'd bring home game and they'd hang it in the back of the garage, they would have high activity of something banging on the sides of the house, screams coming from the woods. Something was trying to get their attention for some reason. And after, I guess, a couple of years of that, she figured it was because they were, whatever it was hungry. It was her impression that she got. So she planted the garden to deter them from being so close to her and banging on her walls with her incantation of what and why.
So if you don't mind, could you, because I know people are going to want to know, you talked about the male. What did the other two look like?
Oh, she had her back to me, I'm guessing. That's why I'm saying I'm guessing because I never did get to see the front side of the smaller one. She was way smaller than him. It was just like Papa Bear, Mama Bear, Baby Bear type thing, like he was.
What size would you guess? Like how tall and stuff?
I'd say probably he was at least 11 foot tall. He was huge. Yeah, I mean, you talk about, people talk about having like seeing him from a distance, and like they try to like get like Bubba when he goes out there to do the reenactments. Mm-hmm. They use the big guy so that he can go out there to see if you're going. Yeah, so I was way taller than you are, but like no, like when you're up close like that, I mean, the prominent, definite size is there. Like there's no denying that he was at least 11 foot tall.
Wow. Like
just towering huge. I don't know if they grow bigger here because the trees are bigger, but he was huge. I'm talking, yeah. She was probably half his size.
Wow.
The next size down was half that. She might have been 7 foot tall.
Yeah. About
that, but slender. And Baby was about the size of my 5-year-old, which she told me that the baby was new. Like the baby was a year, like wasn't there. Mama hadn't come to the garden. Mama had only been present in the garden for the past 3 years. She said she'd noticed there was 2 of them now. And then she said after that, Mama didn't come for a year. Like there was no but one set for a year, and then Baby was there. Like, so the baby was new. So I'm saying 6-8 months old, and it's the size of my 5-year-old.
Yeah. Did it walk off on its own, or did she pick it up?
She picked it up. She knelt down with the crook of her arm and swooped his butt up and just put it on her front side. And he held on to her fur, and they just walked away.
Wow.
Like he literally held on to her fur to hold on. Like she didn't hold him after that. After she swooped him up, he climbed up on her and held on.
Did you notice any smells or anything?
Oh yeah, yes. Such earthy, gamey smell. Like if you've ever, I can't really say you ever have because you're in Oklahoma, but maybe you have come across like an old stump or something that you kick over, and the smell that kind of comes out of the earth, that musky smell. That's what it smelled like. Decomposing
wood and stuff.
Right, just like the earth smells. It wasn't rancid, like nasty, like some people describe it like rotten meat and stuff.
Right.
That was not the impression I got at all from the smell. It was really earthy.
I was just going to ask you again. You were talking about originally whenever you got there, it looked like a Bigfoot playground. That's actually a term that like I've heard multiple people say.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like other people have seen similar areas, I guess you would call it, locations where there just seems like all of a sudden there's just a spot where there's just like tons of what is assumed to be Bigfoot structures and signs and stuff. What were some of the things that you were seeing? Like you mentioned, like vines tied together or something?
Yeah, there was ivy vines that usually just grow up the trees. Mm-hmm. They'll just choke out a tree. So they grow up on all sides and they just take over the tree. Well, these vines, like I'm staring at a tree right in front of me right now. That's actually not decorated with the vines like this was, but I'm actually staring at a redwood tree that's covered in vines. These ones were directed, like they had been manipulated to look like something fantastic, like art wise, like you would do with your house plant. Like if you have one of those vining house plants, like you would train it to do something. Well, these had been trained to go certain ways and do certain things.
Did your friend say anything to you about telepathic communication with them?
No, she did not. She told me that she knew what they were, and that from the moment that she had kept getting the banging on the side of the house every time she'd bring home game, that which was every couple months, because the hunting, you stock up on that stuff during the seasons, during the early of the year, so that you have it, all year round. And she said that from that, she knew. She didn't say anything to anybody. She just knew what it was. She's kind of she has a really unique name, so I can't tell you it. She's probably the only one in the whole area, but she's a real earthy, hippie type person, and she knew instantly it was probably a Bigfoot. And that she just said that she doesn't bug them much because to go back there, it was kind of boring for her. She'd go back there just to check on the garden to see how much food was left, and then to plant the garden in May and June was about all that she did back there. She didn't bug them. She wanted them. She didn't really want a whole lot to do with them. It wasn't. She didn't really feel the urge to communicate or to try and become friends with them. She just wanted them to kind of stay away from her house.
Did you mentioned your husband found the tracks with you and everything?
Yeah.
Was he convinced of Bigfoot? Like, what were his thoughts on the whole thing?
He was wondering what the heck was wrong with me because I was crying. When I got back to the van, I was overwhelmed with sadness, and I lost a son.
Oh my God!
It's been almost 10 years now since he passed, and the feeling that I got that day it felt like I'd just been time traveled 8 years to the past. The feeling that I had there was just. It's such a dreadful loss feeling, and I was overwhelmed by it all the way home. I cried, and he was like, "What is wrong with you?" And I was like, "I can't tell you. It's just, don't worry about it." And so, to him, it was, he knew something was up, and he could tell I was touched by something, but he didn't know.
So this may be a little weird.
Nothing gets much worse than that.
I'm just curious as to your thoughts. Do you think that's why the Bigfoot reached out to you like that?
I do. Yes, I have thought about that over and over many times, and you're the first person to ask me that I've told this to. My husband, I finally confessed to, and he didn't have much to say, but you are like, other than my best friend who did ask me, she did ask me if I felt it, like the connection from me losing my son. She was the one that kind of brought it into forthright sight, like the connection to that. Like maybe she could feel, he or she could feel that I had lost a child, like my scars were visible to Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm. Like
my feelings and things that I'd been through that had made me who I am were the reason why it communicated with me. And I believe so that was probably why. Yes.
It's not something, I mean, obviously it's not something I understand. It's not something any of us, as far as I know of, have the answers to. What I do know is that a lot of witnesses become witnesses during an emotional event, or they're crying at the time, or they're really angry at the time.
Right. They're open.
And it seems almost like the Bigfoot can sense that somehow, and for lack of a better term, reveal themselves to the person at that point for some reason. I don't know what it is.
The feeling of lack of maybe just lack of more of a reality touching thing. Like, you know how when you're upset about something, you kind of feel like the reality of it's overwhelming to you, you know, so to say. And because you're stuck in that reality and you're upset about it, opens up a dimension of available realities, other available dimension of reality. And that's probably very much so true. Makes sense to me.
I mean, I've been thinking a lot lately about things outside of what we would consider the norm, outside of the scientific spectrum. And, you know, we have our senses, our physical senses, that allow us to detect things in our own areas. Science, I mean, all of that is basically measurements. You know, we have devices and we have intelligence to a certain extent that allows us to measure things and comprehend certain things based on things that we have figured out or think that we have figured out.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that there aren't other things that we just haven't built technology that can detect it, or we don't have the right kind of sensory organ to detect it.
Right.
And I think Bigfoot...
Or we've lost touch with it.
Right. And I think Bigfoot might have that capability.
Oh, by far, overwhelmingly amounts of it. I think that our exposure to technology and the government, the television, things like that, things meant to draw us out of reality that have been invented, were started by the government to deter us from, like, things like, you know, the whole witchcraft era where they were burning witches on stakes and trying to eliminate people who had that ability to be in touch with other things that we've all lost touch with. And I believe that
if you look back in history, I mean, I know, okay, people, please do not stop listening. Don't unfollow me. Just listen. That's all I'm asking. Just listen. Different groups of people all throughout history. You know, you have your leaders and their right-hand person, their top advisors were usually, you know, soothsayers, wizards, psychics, you know, medicine men, things like that. And they were always held highly. They were highly revered. And at some point, we decided that none of that could possibly exist. I don't know why we just shut the door on it. But we did. And I have yet to see anybody prove to me that they have a psychic ability that they can just control and, you know, predict the future. It hasn't been proven to me, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
there are very few spoon benders. Remember that whole thing where been with their mind? Yeah. And like that has totally just been 10 years ago. I was watching a show. There was a person that was doing it, and I haven't heard anything since. You know, it's like they just disappeared off the face of the earth. You can look it up on the internet, but you won't find much on it.
I was just going to say, I've seen a lot of people, videos and information debunking that sort of thing.
Right.
And that stuff is out there. And don't get me wrong. Yeah, absolutely. You can debunk a lot of people. You can debunk a lot of things. That doesn't mean that something doesn't exist in that realm.
Right. Like it's just people have lost touch with it. I believe that if we were to be thrown back into the 18th, like say we were to get thrown back into the 19th century, and all of a sudden there was no cell phones, there was no Wi-Fi, there was not even electricity. I mean, could you imagine what kind of things you would have to be in touch with to survive?
Well, I mean, at that point in time, stories was the form of communication. People passing stories along.
That was how you passed down. Yeah, that was how you passed down things like that. That was how, like the Mayans, for 3,000 years, that's how they.
So all these stories that to us in modern society, now that the exchange of information and communication has changed, stories are just stories. You're just telling a story. You have no way to prove any of this happened to you.
Right.
But a couple hundred years ago, which isn't that long ago, stories were facts. That was information. That's what people based their knowledge on, the stories that they heard.
Yes, if you heard it, it must be true.
Right.
Very much so. It's really neat. If so-and-so said it, it's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah, your grandmother told you a story of something that happened to her, that was facts. And yeah, I mean, that stuff's so far gone now. It's just kind of depressing to think that legends have come to an end like that.
Yeah, absolutely. But on that same note, I mean, your children, what mom says is gospel. Mom's not going to lie to me. She's telling the truth, So,
right.
People have to keep that into consideration whenever they're hearing people such as yourself come on my show or some other podcast and open themselves up to the public and share something amazing and extraordinary like this. I'm not asking anybody to believe it. You're not asking me to believe it.
No,
but the fact that you came out here to share it, people need to pay attention to that, because while it's just a story to them, to your children and people that know you, it's reality. It's the truth.
Yeah, it was real. It happened to me, and it's neat to be able to tell somebody who's willing to accept it. I appreciate you.
No. I'm just here to provide the platform for people like you to share your story.
Right. It was super, because without you, it would just be word of mouth, and usually it would come out, she's crazy. And it's probably still doing that, but at least us trying to, put the platform down for it to stand on it, which is what you're doing, and I appreciate it. It's very nice to have, that opportunity, and it was a very real thing, and it's kind of far-fetched, but it was real, and I felt it. In my mind, I seen it, and I was there for it.
Right.
It was probably a one-in-a-lifetime thing, and I hope, because, otherwise, it really was kind of scary. I was very overwhelmed with emotion, and it was kind of scary. And I can't say I would want to do it again unless maybe you bought me coffee first.
So have you pursued it since then? Have you gone out and looked for them?
I have not. I will not. I do look for him. I feel him everywhere I go. It's almost like, oh God, here I go. It's almost like he lives across the street from me. Like, I live in a rural area up on a hill, and I go out on my porch in the mornings and I feel something watching me from across the street from my house. And you can almost, how do I put this? You almost feel like and see, like, in the dark spots in the trees, like you could just, that something's standing over there watching you, whether it be It's just, it doesn't, like mountain lions, you know, like when you go in the woods and you feel something kind of like creep, you're like, okay, that's going to be a mountain lion or it's a coyote. But no, this is something like dominant feeling, like it's not there to make me feel scared. It's just there and I feel it.
That's really interesting that you say that. I don't know if anybody would back me on this. I know I've had conversations with people who are very scientific and data-driven researchers trying to do the science in their research, you know, and get everything accurate and be open and have all their ducks in a row and everything.
Trying to prove their point.
But a lot of people will know this is true. Whenever they're around, you can feel it.
Yeah.
And whenever they aren't around, you can feel that too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a change in the way your atmosphere is. The eyes are, say there's eyes, the windows to the soul. Well, you definitely feel the spirit in the air, so to say, if they're watching and they're looking at you. Like I believe that he or she was so fascinated by my children that she was telepathically communicating with my son, telling him that the coyotes got the rabbit. And that was why he was so distracted whilst we were on the river bar, you know, like my 3-year-old, and he don't know how to tell me, like, he don't know how to like grasp what's going on through his mind. He just knows that he's got these thoughts. And so he's trying to tell me that the dogs got the rabbit. And I was thinking, that's kind of silly. Like, what are you talking about? We're going to look for rocks. Son, over here type thing. And he was just off on his own trip. And it made sense to me. Like she was playing maybe telepathically with my son about the coyote. She was telling him the coyotes were getting the rabbit. And I don't know how else he would have even thought of that, you know, being 3. And I was like, huh? The dog's getting the rabbit. And when you first pulled down onto the river bar, like my husband said, oh, it sounds like the coyotes got something. It was all that he had said about that, and that was all that was said about it.
Huh.
They were yapping, and there was a whole, you know, team of them, and they were yap, row, and that was all that was said. And so I was like, you think we're safe? You know, I go, no problem. They're more scared of you than, you know, just keep them close and go ahead and go. And that was kind of just all that was said about that. But yeah, me and my son were walking across the river, it was like just totally sidetracked and distracted, unlike anything I'd ever experienced with him. Usually he's right up where my brain and my eyeballs are. He's there, you know.
Yeah.
But he just wasn't that. He wasn't that day.
Little kids and dogs.
He was just the dog. Yeah, he was just the dog getting the rabbit.
Huh. So what do you think the different stick structures and stuff mean?
I think that the tree bends, the tree snaps, I believe that those are coverage, to hide. When they take the top of the tree and they snap it to where the bushy part on the top of the tree comes down, I think it's to create more foliage, more cover. For coverage. Yes. I was just on the trail that I was on, it was just full of tree bends. I see at least one new one every time I go down that trail.
I mean, you're out there right now, correct?
I am. I'm actually at the end of the avenue, at the stop sign at the end of the avenue before you hit the freeway. That's where you hit 101. Eleanor Road is the name of the road. It's the first road off of the beginning of the avenue.
I'm sure people in California will know exactly where you're talking about.
Yeah.
Out here in Oklahoma, I have no clue, but that's all right.
That's okay. But you go down to the end of this road, there's a bridge, and there's actually a vortex. If you look on ancient maps, you will see that there is, they call them ley lines or whatever they call them. Yeah. Which is like, you'll see that one of them runs right through here. And if you walk down to the end of this road where the old highway bridge is, it's actually not there anymore. But the old bridge is actually falling into the earth. It's not really, you can't even drive across. You have to walk back there to actually see it. But at the very end of that, down where the creek meets the river, there's a vortex. and you can feel it as you're walking down there. You can actually, if you take and you stop and you take pictures of the area, you can see in the pictures like the scenery will be swirling.
Wow.
In your pictures. It's really kind of cool. A good way to spot a vortex is by taking pictures of your surroundings.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah. I'm a big hunter of the vortexes. I love them. They're really neat to find. There's more than a few around here.
Do you think the Bigfoot can pick up on those areas?
Oh, I know for a fact he does. I'm very firm on that one. I used to have a... I'm horrible. Google remembers everything, but I can't seem to. And when I have a phone that crashes or dies or breaks, I'm screwed. I can't ever get back into anything, it seems. But yeah, it's too smart for me. But no, I used to have pictures of Bigfoot in a vortex. Like I had taken these pictures, and in the middle of them was a dark red-haired colored. It looked just like him, the Bigfoot, right in the center, smack center of a twisting picture. He was standing still, and he wasn't blurred, but the rest of it was, like everything around him was blurred.
And you couldn't see him at the time?
I could not see him at the time, but in the picture, after taking the pictures and looking at him, yes, he was there.
Wow.
Yeah, a place called Dyerville Loop.
Dyerville Loop. Huh.
Yep, that's enough. Yeah, where I've took many vortex pictures.
People are going to be checking it out when they listen to the show. They're going to Google it.
Enjoy it, guys. Play it. It's very, very, very fun and very enticing. I wouldn't blame you for going and checking it out. That's what we're here for, is to bring it out. Maybe people will get in touch with that old timey stuff that we used to do. You know, maybe people will get more into yoga and self spirit, building. And that's all I really want, is for people to, communicate. It's doable. It really is. Mental telepathy is a scientific proven fact. You can do it. People just need to realize it and believe in it and practice it more, and it would be a thing,
Yeah, I had a guest on the show. It's been a while now. I'm actually going to have them back, who studied shamanism and Buddhism, and had an incredible story about his experiences with Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff he was talking about off air, I was talking to him about how he was able to accomplish the things he had accomplished, which was taught to him by an actual shaman, or a shamaness, I guess would be the correct term. And, could it be taught to just anybody? And he basically explained it, and it made a lot of sense. Most people aren't willing to do what it takes to reach that enlightenment or that ability.
Right. No, yeah. Maybe too much time it takes, or just too far-fetched for them to.
Yeah. I mean, if you suggest somebody, like, not pick up a cell phone or use any technology for a month, they're not going to be able to do it.
Holy shit.
They're just not going to be able to.
Did what? I don't even know why they bother to announce it on the phones that we're having an eclipse. Like, nobody's going to look up at it. They're going to watch it on the internet.
Exactly.
They're like, I'll catch it later on a video somebody took, or on satellite. And to actually step outside and watch the red moon eclipse would be like, huh?
Well, a good friend of mine used to always say, you'll never find a Bigfoot at a Bigfoot conference.
No.
and that's kind of the point, everybody wants to see a picture, everybody wants to see a video.
Yeah, good luck.
But they're not willing to go out and look for them. No,
that's one of the BFRO. That's one of the things that really I dig about them, is they actually do the expeditions. That you have to pay a bunch to go. It's like $300 to $500, depending on where you go. But it's a whole couple days of an expedition in an area where there's been reported sightings, and where, like somewhere like here, they're supposed to be coming here in November and also in June, I think. So next month they'll be here, and then in June they'll be back again. Or November they'll be back again. So, but I can't afford to go to something like that. I mean, shit, I wish. I just do it every day myself.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you need to.
Right. I couldn't believe somebody paying for something to do something like that.
I mean, I guess people spend their money on a lot worse. So if they've got the money and that's how they want to spend it, God bless them. But
yeah, drugs and porno. I mean, that's really just that seems to be the thing to go for nowadays. But yeah, I mean, nature walks, and you'd be surprised how many tourists are actually come down here and to walk through these redwoods. Thousands of people in the summertime. You get thousands of people a week that actually come through here to look at these trees. So,
and they never see the forest.
They're so beautiful. It's just breathtaking. It's mystic. They call it the mystic redwoods for a reason. And I grew up here my whole life, so it's nothing to me, really. I mean, it's like my friend in her Bigfoot garden. You know, she's like, it doesn't excite me anymore. She's like, I'm just glad they're not beating on my house.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think, after your experiences and everything, do you think that it's true that Bigfoot kidnaps people?
I think that if a sighting is gonna put his existence in turmoil, like to reveal his existence, somebody's getting him. It just depends on the Bigfoot. I think it depends on who it is that they catch on video. Like if I was to catch a Bigfoot on video that was maybe more mature than, or maybe one that was, I mean, it just depends, I think, on the Bigfoot, just like it would on the person.
Yeah.
That whether or not they decide that they need to be grabbed up and disposed of to save their existence. I think that one my phone's about ready to die, honey.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. I was getting ready to wrap up. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. I'm sure it's going to spark a lot of comments and questions.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it's my reality, and hopefully somebody else can grasp it.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Be sure to subscribe, follow, like, and leave a comment if you enjoyed the show. And as always, thanks for listening.